Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. Today, Attorney General Merrick Garland announced he has appointed a special counsel who will take over the two major Department of Justice investigations into Donald Trump. One about his attempted coup after the 2020 election, and the second, the classified documents he took from the White House to Mar-a-Lago. This comes just 3 days after the ex-president announced he is making another bid for the White House, a key factor that played into the Attorney General's decision.
The Department of Justice has long recognized that in certain extraordinary cases, it is in the public interest to appoint a special prosecutor to independently manage an investigation and prosecution. Based on recent developments, including the former president's announcement that he is a candidate for president in the next election, and the sitting president's stated intention to be a candidate as well, I have concluded that it is in the public interest to appoint a special counsel.
The man Garland chose for that very important job is a man by the name of Jack Smith, career prosecutor with 30 years of experience. Smith spent nearly a decade with the Eastern District of New York, where he prosecuted gang murders of police officers and civil rights violations. He then worked at the International Criminal Court, overseeing war crimes investigations before joining the DOJ as the chief of the Public Integrity Section. That's the part of the DOJ that does public corruption trials. In that role, Smith investigated corruption cases involving public figures, winning convictions against a governor and a congressman. At the time, Smith described his outlook about his work to the New York Times, saying in part, quote, "If I were the sort of person who could be cowed, I know we should bring this case, I know the person did it, but we could lose and that will look bad, I would find another line of work." Most recently, Smith has been at The Hague, serving as chief prosecutor for the special court investigating war crimes committed in Kosovo. He is now returning from Europe to begin this work immediately, and he will ultimately decide if the United States government will prosecute Donald Trump.
Throughout his career, Jack Smith has built a reputation as an impartial and determined prosecutor who leads teams with energy and focus to follow the facts wherever they lead. As special counsel, he will exercise independent prosecutorial judgment to decide whether charges should be brought.
Now, we know Merrick Garland did not make this decision lightly. I mean, we know Merrick Garland. We watched him right through these first few years. He has been extremely cautious and concerned about the political aspects or even perception of these investigations. And he's spoken out publicly about how crucial they are. This is the Attorney General talking about the January 6th investigation back in July.
This is the most wide-ranging investigation and the most important investigation that the Justice Department has ever entered into. And we have done so because this effort to upend a legitimate election, transferring power from one administration to another, cuts at the fundamental of American democracy. We have to get this right.
Now, of course, this all comes in the context of an ex-president who is unrepentant, who about the violent coup he attempted to foment, still does not accept that he lost the 2020 election, always claims to be the victim. And his campaign spokesman released a statement this afternoon calling the appointment, predictably, a totally expected political stunt by a feckless, politicized, weaponized Biden Department of Justice. But that statement's not surprising, especially from a man who's really flailing. His favorability ratings are hitting new lows, even and crucially among his own party, where he's now running in the primary. A Pew poll conducted last month found that just 60% of Republicans view the ex-president warmly, down from 67% last summer and 79% in April of 2020. And more people are running away from him, including his own daughter, Ivanka, who skipped his big campaign kickoff at Mar-a-Lago this week, announcing she is quitting politics. Even his eldest son, his biggest cheerleader, Don Jr., was absent from that presidential announcement, saying he was stuck on a hunting trip and something about bad weather. Key figures in the evangelical movement are turning on Trump as well, including one of his former campaign advisors, who now says he's not ready to endorse him again. And two Republican megadonors have already made it clear they will not back Trump's third bid for the White House, saying they want the party to move on to a fresh face. Now, Trump clearly thought that his campaign announcement would offer him some protection from all of the very intense legal peril that he is in. There's been a lot of discussion about this idea, and the Department of Justice might be wary of prosecuting him if he were officially a presidential candidate again. Well, his announcement clearly had an effect on Attorney General Merrick Garland, just maybe not in the way Trump hoped. Instead, he now has a world-renowned prosecutor coming straight from The Hague, prosecuting war criminals to determine his fate.